7, verse 3. Man, I got the hiccups tonight. Ooh. Okay. All right. Well, all right. We're live, everyone. Welcome, everybody. I'm Brother Doug with our sister Sadia here, Brother Yahusha, Brother Joshua. We got Sister Marissa with us as well, Brother Dennis and Sister Shoshana on their line below us there. So we are the Awakened by Yahuwah Assembly, and we are going to be getting into our 5th installment of how to find Yahusha in the Tanakh in the Old Testament. So I really recommend people check these studies out, especially for those that are trying to witness to people that have biases against the Brit Hadashah, the New Covenant scriptures. So if you have anyone, verse 3, if you have anyone that you think would benefit from this, please feel free to share. And we do have a playlist. Let me show you guys the playlist we have. Just so I would really recommend people go to the playlist, because you're not going to be able to understand everything we say as far as expounding is concerned just from this video alone. And there's going to be certain things on the document we don't go through on this particular part 5. So we're not going to be going through every aspect of the document in this part. So you're going to want to review and see some of these other parts. So let me just go to playlist here, right? And let's see here. Okay, so should be organized here. So let's just see here. So it's up here somewhere. Chapter by chapter. Okay, how to find Yahusha in the Tanakh. This playlist right here, guys. So again, we have all 4 previous installments. I really recommend you guys check this out, and I think it will be very important for those that are trying to reach those that are either starting to fall away from the Brit Hadashah, or even just witnessing to a Jewish person or a Muslim or this or that, where there's certain belief systems out there that only acknowledge the Torah. So anyway, so this, I believe that especially when you're witnessing to any type of Jewish person, this is going to come in handy. So I really recommend it. Anyway, so moving on. Now we're going to go to part 5 here. I think we left off right before Jeremiah 7, verse 3. So that's the one we're going to go to. Just bear with me here, guys. I'm trying to open the document here. I thought I had it open before, but it's on another document now. Here we go. So, all right. Okay, so we're on the title of Yahuwah Alua. We're continuing that.
I'm trying to share your screen, but if you are, it's not.
Yeah, I'm about to right now. So I was just trying to get the stupid document open. It was taking a very long time for getting that document open. It's very weird. Okay, so how to find Yahusha in the Tanakh. All right, so you scroll down here. We are at the title of Yahuwah Alua, or Yahuwah Alihim, whatever you prefer. Okay. Actually, no, we did that last time. My bad. We're at Yahuwah of Armies. So we last went through about right here is where we left off at. We did Jeremiah 6, verse 9. So now we're doing Jeremiah 7, verse 3. So I'm going to give you guys a new share screen here, because now I'm going to have to go to my, I think I'm going to use the E sword here. Now let me see if I can just share the whole screen. That way I don't have to keep shifting views. Let me see if that will work. Okay, so we go to Jeremiah 7, verse 3, right? And here we go. In the E sword here, I'm going to use the Charles Thompson translation of the Greek Orthodox Bible, aka, Septuagint Old Testament, Greek New Testament. Okay, so it says here. Oh, actually, let me switch to the Masoretic only because Sabaoth is not there. Okay, so I have to use the Masoretic here. Thus says Yahuwah of armies, or Yahuwah Sabaoth, the Alua of Yasharal, make your ways and your deeds well or good, then I will let you dwell in this place. Now, this is important, especially when you get to people that think 1948 is a fulfillment of prophecy. That's a whole nother topic. Says he says to return to him, to repent, to come back to his Torah, then you can dwell in that place, which a lot of people tend to forget when you go into the whole 1948 nonsense. Okay, a lot of people say, "Oh, well, he brought them back in there." If Yahuwah is the one that did it, they had to have repented at some point, which they didn't as a nation. They did not. Okay, Jeremiah 7 verse 21. Thus says Yahuwah of armies, or Yahuwah Sabaoth, the Alua of Yasharel, and your ascending offerings to your slaughter offerings. Add your ascended offerings to your slaughter offerings and grain. And and eat meat. So I don't know if that word is supposed to be meat there or grain, but anyway, so it's talking about their sacrifices. My assumption would be that he's making fun of their sacrifices because they're living wicked and they're trying to sacrifice to him, which a lot of times Yahuwah says, obedience is better than sacrifice. What's the use of you giving me the blood of bulls, rams, and lambs if you're just going to keep on sinning and all that? So that's probably the context there. Jeremiah 8, verse 3. So was I right, Mom? Or okay. Yeah. So I really didn't take time to look down the whole chapter. Jeremiah 8:3, and death shall be preferred to life by all the rest of those who remain of this evil people, who remain in all their places where I have driven them, declares Yahuwah of armies, or Yahuwah Sabaoth. So right here, he's talking about his people are evil. He's calling them wicked. So again, something very interesting there. So we see that at times Yahuwah would, straight out call his people out. Okay.
Straight.
Go ahead, Brother Yahusha.
The Lexham doesn't have Yahuwah of armies. Like Yahuwah is completely omitted in that verse. Were you reading from a Septuagint?
No, I was reading from Masoretic only because the chapter 7 has the Hebrew word for of armies is not in the Septuagint of chapter 7 verse 3, so I had to switch. It just says Yahuwah in the Septuagint in chapter 7 verse 3, so I had to go to the ISR or something. For some reason it's omitted in chapter 7 verse 3 and as well in chapter 8 verse 3. It's weird.
It's not even in there at all.
It's let's see here. So just see. It doesn't even seem like Yahuwah is there. Yeah. So this is like one of the very rare occurrences of this happening. Where usually the Masoretic does this, they'll have the I there, like I shall drive them out, and rather than his name being there. So it's making it generic, which is very, very seldom does that happen with the Septuagint. Very seldom does that happen. So that's like a rare occurrence. So what I'm going to do here with chapter 7 and 8, I'm going to put a little note here on the document. I suggest people for 8 verse 3 and 7 verse 3 and also verse 21 read from a Masoretic text-based Bible. So whether you have on you a ESV, NIV, read from one of those, or a NLT or a TS 1998. Any one of those will have Yahuwah of armies in those verses. Jeremiah 9:7. So now we're up to, but that's a good point, bro. Yeah, I didn't even notice that in chapter 8. So chapter 8, verse 3 doesn't have Yahuwah mentioned at all. It just says, I shall drive them out. That's about it. So that's very weird. Let's see here. Does it have it here, 9 verse 3? All right, they at least have Yahuwah in 9 verse 3, but Sabaoth is omitted again. So you have to go to the Masoretic. See here. Let's just go for, let's just do ESV. They bend their tongue like a bow. Falsehood, not truth, has gone strong in the land, for they proceed from evil to evil. Oh, they do not know me. Maybe this one doesn't have of armies in it. Okay, so I'm noticing it's not in the ESV either. Okay, so yeah, that's a mistake on my part. Okay, yeah, it just declares Yahuwah. Okay, so that's a mistake on my part. So, oh, it's 9 verse 7. That's why. Whoops. All right, it's my bad there. Okay, here we go. Yeah, so as you can see here, Masoretic has it. Yahuwah of armies, Yahuwah Sabaoth. So now if we go to the Septuagint, does it have it? No, it just has Yahuwah. Okay, so the Sabaoth sometimes is left out in the Septuagint for whatever reason. I don't know why. It's kind of funny that it's left in the Masoretic because the point we're proving would be against what the Masoretes believe. So it's kind of interesting. It's kind of interesting that they would leave it in there. So let's go to verse 15. Now, verse 15 has Yahuwah Alua of Yashar, but I think it's missing. Yeah, so it's supposed to say, in the Masoretic, it has, thus says Yahuwah of armies, or Yahuwah Sabaoth, the Alua of Yashar. Okay, so a little difference there. Okay, so again, of armies is omitted. Now, I remember, I forget who it was, but a church father, interestingly, talked about how the Septuagint was getting corrupted in his day, and how these rabbis were taking stuff out of the Septuagint, omitting stuff from the scriptures. I forget which Catholic church father said that. So it's not surprising that there is stuff omitted, like phrases like Sabaoth. Go ahead, Brother Yahusha.
I mentioned that in the past, but I have to correct myself because it would have been Justin Martyr that claimed that the book of Jeremiah, possibly they took something out of Ezra because there's a messianic prophecy that he quotes that's no longer found. However, the quote that he gave from the book of Jeremiah, I think he got confused with the Apocrypha of Jeremiah, which, like, I'm not sure if it's scripture or not. We only have fragments, but I think he got those two confused with one another, and that's possibly why he said that they removed something, because when he read what he read from the Apocrypha of Jeremiah, and then he went and read Jeremiah and didn't see it in there, I don't know why, but I think he was mistaken on that, so I just had to correct myself.
Okay, because I know there's others that have mentioned about Jeremiah. I forget who else, but you had Theodotion that was trying to fix Jeremiah and other books in the LXX at that time. And there's even been Theodotion's version of Daniel in our Lexham, actually. So I do know that there's proof to what Justin Martyr was saying. He might have been mistaken, like you said, about that prophecy, but other things have been omitted from Jeremiah. There's certain chapters where there's like 3 verses in Jeremiah. Same thing with Proverbs. Proverbs has like complete chapters almost missing. So obviously they're doing something to it. They were removing some stuff. And it seems like Sabaoth was taken out for whatever reason. I can't imagine, because the only other assumption I could have was that the Masoretes would add that word in there, add it in there. I think they would want to hide Yahusha, not make it as he is that person. So just knowing the Masoretes who they are, I think it's way more likely the Septuagint. I would agree with Justin Martyr. At some point in time, you have these rabbis messing with the texts, and they're trying to make the Septuagint maybe look less authoritative by taking out verses, taking out half of a chapter, doing this, doing that, trying to bastardize it. And I could easily see that happening. especially since they rejected the Septuagint at some point in time. So they could have had this conspiracy where, okay, let's tamper with it a little bit, and then we're going to get our people to reject it. And it's very possible. And like I said, I know there's going to be people trolling on the comments. Oh, Yahuwah's word has never been tampered with. And all I'm going to say is that you need to do some research about manuscripts and how manuscripts, how there's issues with manuscripts throughout the ages, and how even you'll get fragments of manuscripts. Okay. The fact of the matter is we don't have original of anything. So that's a fact. That's a historical fact. So the problem is that even the Septuagint today we have is from the Vatican. It's a copy of a copy of a copy, whatever, however you want to phrase it. It's like a second or third hand copy at the minimum, the Codex Vaticanus. And so is the Codex Sinaiticus. They're not original 300 BC Septuagints. They're copies of their copy of a copy of a copy of what would have been the original Septuagint. So you're going to have issues like this. You're going to have that's just the way manuscripts go, because you have some person copying and copying and copying, and if the person is not being genuine with how they're copying a manuscript, they can leave things out. They can do this, they can do that. So again, the idea that Yahuwah wouldn't allow man to tamper with copies of his word and not his original word, there's nowhere in the Bible that says that doesn't happen. So anyway, so that's just a fact. It's happened, and it's happened with multiple manuscripts throughout time. Anyway, but I am aware of these instances where I have to use the Masoretic because either something's lacking in the Septuagint, it's not there, so sometimes I have to go to the Masoretic. Go ahead, Brother Yahusha.
For anyone that would say, like, oh, the Septuagint comes from the Vatican, like, you can't trust it. Okay, you might as well throw out your New Testament then, because that came from the Vatican.
Mm-hmm. You might as well throw out pretty much any other manuscript than the Masoretic text, and you would have to become the Old Testament only Israelite, essentially. And the bigger problem is the Masoretic text as the original manuscript is highly flawed, is probably the most flawed out of all the Old Testament manuscripts. So even if I have a corrupted third, fourth hand-me-down manuscript, it's still more accurate according to most that have studied into the manuscripts, it's still more accurate than a first-hand Masoretic text. So you still have a problem with a first-hand Masoretic text is highly flawed overall. And it's so if you're going to reject it just because it comes from the Vatican, okay, but you're also taking something that comes from Judaism that on purpose they admitted they've changed scripture. They're actually upfront with you. So it's even worse because these rabbinical rabbis, these Masoretic rabbis have admitted, oh, we have fixed so-called, discrepancies with the Septuagint and this and that. So they're admitting you that they're changing scripture. They're actually admitting it. So I would rather take something from the Vatican where I know its original source was from men that actually were real Israelites and were not in rabbinical Judaism than a source where originally it was even, had leaven in it. So, but anyway, but that's something for the viewers and listeners to research for yourself. You'll see what I'm talking about, where the Messianic prophecies, even with a hand-me-down, hand-me-down Septuagint, is 10 times more accurate almost in every Messianic prophecy versus the Masoretic text. So, but anyway, so the next one we have is Jeremiah 10, verse 16, I think is the one we're at right now. So Jeremiah 10, verse 16, the portion of Yaqub is not like these, for he is the maker of all. Okay, the way the ISR has that reading is very weird. And Yasharel is the tribe of his. Okay, I see what it's referring to. Okay, so the maker of all is talking about as Yahuwah. Okay. And Yasharel is the tribe of his inheritance. Yahuwah of armies, or Sabayut is his name. So again, it's calling this person Yahuwah of armies as the maker of everything, and that Yasharel is his inheritance. Now, there's a couple of cross references we can go to this to prove that it's saying that the Yahuwah of armies is the same person as the Father. There's a couple of verses we can go to prove that. But anyway, so it's very clear. So Septuagint, interestingly enough, again, does not have Sabaoth. It says Yahuwah is his name, which again, unfortunately, leaves out that title for whatever reason. But if we go to that inheritance part of it, he is his inheritance. Okay, let's go back to the origin of this here and prove to you that this Yahuwah of armies guy is Yahuwah himself. Okay, so show you real quick. Deuteronomy 32, verse 8, you can only get this. Now, this is a situation where the Masoretic text has changed something and is very flawed. I'm going to show you right here. When the Most High divided the nations, when he separated the sons of Adam, or, descendants of Noah, however you want to word it there, he set the boundaries of the nations according to the number of the angels of Yahuwah, or Angelos Theos, okay? Which again agrees with the Dead Sea Scroll reading of this exact verse, which also agrees with one of the Targums that literally paraphrases it as the 70 angels. Okay, so again, this is a situation where the opposite. You have the opposite problem where the Masoretic text is changing history on purpose, and it's changed B'nai Elohim to B'nai Yisrael. So again, that's why I say we don't have a perfect version of the scriptures today. That was the point I was trying to make. Okay, so we have to consider all manuscripts, test all manuscripts to get the closest to Yahuwah's pure word. That's the best we can do at this point. But again, another proof here to you that Yahuwah of armies has to be Yahuwah. If you're not convinced with Deuteronomy 32, verse 8, let's go to another one. Deuteronomy 4, verse 19, lest having looked up at the sky, having seen the sun, moon, and the stars, all the heavenly bodies, aka the angels, okay, you should go astray and worship them and serve them, which Yahuwah your Elohim has distributed to all the nations under heaven. But Yahuwah took you and led you forth out of the land of Egypt, out of the iron furnace, out of Egypt, to be to him a people of inheritance as at this day. So clearly this is showing here that whoever, Yasharel is Yahuwah's inheritance. They are only his inheritance. So Yahuwah has to be Yahuwah, has to be the Father himself. Okay, so that's a little bit of oneness there for you guys. Okay. So I discussed earlier when introducing people to this title how clearly Yahuwah of armies is Yahusha, the one that the armies of heaven follow, Revelations 19. Okay. But it's also, there's scripture showing that Yahuwah of armies is the Father himself. So showing the oneness there. Okay. Now we're going to go to Jeremiah 11:17, verse 20 and 22. Okay, so let's see here. We got Jeremiah 11:17. Okay, so let's see here. I think I'll have to use the Masoretic again. And Yahuwah of armies who planted you has spoken evil against you for the evil of the house of Yasharel and the house of Yehuda, which they have done against themselves to provoke me by burning incense to Baal. Okay. All right, now let's go to verse 20 here. But, O Yahuwah of armies, who rightly rules righteously, who tries kidneys and heart, let me see your vengeance upon them. For unto you I have revealed my cause. So again, we have Yahuwah of armies there again. Last one here. Jeremiah 11, verse 22. Therefore, thus says Yahuwah of armies, see, I am punishing them. The young men shall die by the sword. Their sons and their daughters shall die by scarcity of food. So again, we see Yahuwah of armies mentioned 3 different times there. Jeremiah chapter 11. Now we're going to go to Jeremiah 16, verse 9. Okay. All right. Jeremiah 16, verse 9. So right here we have Yahuwah of armies here. Thus says Yahuwah of armies, Eluah of Yasharal. See before your eyes and in your days I am making the voice of rejoicing, the voice of gladness, the voice of the bridegroom, and the voice of the bride to cease in this place. Okay. All right. So again, Septuagint is leaving out Sabuth, but it does have Yahuwah, Eluah of Yasharal. Okay. So let's go to the next one here, Jeremiah 19, verse 3. So we're going to go to chapter 19 here. All right. Okay, so again, I'm going to have to use the Masoretic here. And shall say, hear the word of Yahuwah, O king of Yehuda, inhabitants of Jerusalem. Thus says Yahuwah of armies, the Eluah of Yasharal. See, I am bringing evil on this place and make the ears tingle of all who hear it. Yes, so again, it doesn't have Sabuth in that verse in the Septuagint. Let me see here. So now we got verse 11 and verse 15. All right, so let's go to verse 11. And you shall say, thus says Yahuwah, will I break in pieces this people? So we just have Yahuwah here in the Septuagint. Okay, but in the Masoretic we have, thus says Yahuwah of armies, even so I break this people in this city as one breaks a potter's vessel, which one is unable to repair again, and let them bury them in the Topheth till there is no place to bury. Now, interesting, allegorically, what Yahuwah could be saying here is that, I am breaking them, as a potter's vessel. Mind you, remember the potter's vessel chapter in Jeremiah 16, Yahuwah says he does to a human what he wants. So it's interesting, it says here, he will break and no one can put back together. So it's almost like he's saying, I've destined them for destruction. No one's going to be able to cause them to repent. It's kind of interesting. It shows his predestination there. Because he's saying this is one that no one can repair again. So very interesting. And that's Jeremiah 19:11. So, yeah. So whatever Yahuwah has purpose for an individual, he has purpose for them. Okay.
Doug, does that mean people?
Yes.
Does that mean
like allegorically, I would say in prophecy it does.
Because it just says they were, predestined for destruction, but it doesn't say exactly who. I mean, it could be angels.
No, it does. It does, because angels are not clay. We're clay. If you look in overall in scripture, whenever allegorically clay is mentioned, also, if you look at Jeremiah 16, 3 chapters earlier, he's talking about mankind. He's not talking about angels in context. He's talking about, if I've purposed to cause a vessel of wrath to become a vessel of honor, who are you to judge your maker? He's talking about, basically, it's like pieces on a chessboard. And he's saying, who are you to judge your maker if I judge this person for this type of vessel? And so he actually calls humans vessels of honor and dishonor in Jeremiah 16. This is how I know this. Like literally, what you would call biblical hermeneutics is when you look at previous context of a certain term. Go ahead, brother Yahusha.
Not clay.
Yeah, so you can find that though in the potter's vessel. It's clearly talking about the righteous versus the wicked, And if Yahuwah wills and causes a righteous nation, or if a righteous nation repents, Yahuwah can turn a vessel of dishonor into honor, and so on and so forth. So he does use that terminology for humans, not angels. So you can find that in Jeremiah 16. So anyway, but let's see here. So now we're at chapter 20, Jeremiah 20, verse 12. And see here, it says, "But, O Yahuwah of armies, trying the righteous and seeing the kidneys and the heart, let me see your vengeance on them, for I've revealed my cause to you." So that's interesting. It's like Jeremiah's praying to him, saying, I want to see your vengeance on them, on the wicked, for I've revealed my cause to you. And again, we see Yahuwah of armies being mentioned here. So it's interesting that Yirmiyahu knew him as Yahuwah of armies. So let's see here. We got, is that a new hand, or I think that might be an old hand. I'm not too sure.
No, I'm sorry. That's an old hand.
Yeah. Thanks, bro. All right. So, yeah. So moving on, we're seeing the current theme here. Okay. Jeremiah 23, 15 to 16. Let's see how much we got left. All right. We're getting through it, but there's a lot more left. Okay. Jeremiah 23, 15 to 16. Therefore, thus says Yahuwah, behold, I will feed them with pain and give them bitter water to drink. For from the prophets of Jerusalem has defilement gone forth into all the land. Thus says Yahuwah Almighty. Now, sometimes the Septuagint will say Yahuwah Almighty versus Yahuwah of armies, so I'll have to switch to the Masoretic here. Yeah. Thus says Yahuwah of armies, do not listen to the words of the prophets who prophesy to you. They lead you astray. They speak of vision of their own heart, not from the mouth of Yahuwah. So, and again, I mean, Yahuwah of armies versus Yahuwah Almighty, it's really the same thing at the end of the day. Once you get to the Brit Hadashah, Yahusha is called Yahuwah Almighty, actually. So I have no problem with that saying Yahuwah Almighty in the Septuagint. It's the same thing to me. But just to, for the title of Yahuwah of armies, it's there in the Masoretic. So let's see here. Jeremiah 23, verse 36. So let's go to 36 here. But the message of Yahuwah you no longer remember, for every man's message is in his own word, for you have changed the words of the living Alua, Yahuwah of armies, our Alua. Now, this is big here. It's saying Yahuwah of armies is the living Alua, or Elohim. Now, again, for those of you that were with us with our oneness study a year or so ago, Yahusha in the Aramaic New Testament, the Brit Hadashah, the Aramaic version of it, calls himself this multiple times. So very interesting. Very interesting that Yahuwah of armies is being called the living Alua, or the living Elohim, which again is points back to Yahuwah, the only true creator. Go ahead, Brother Yahusha.
No, never mind. I figured out what it was. The Lexam Septuagint is all jacked up number-wise. Couldn't find where you were reading from.
Yeah, when you get to certain chapters, that's another reason I don't throw away the Masoretic, is because the way they do these chapters and the differences of the chapter numberings, it gets extremely confusing when you're trying to do studies like this. It gets extremely confusing unless you have a Septuagint that has footnotes and is actually telling you what chapter is what, and even with that, it's confusing. So with Jeremiah, it's all jacked up. It's just weird. So anyway, but Jeremiah 25:8 and 27 to 29. So 25:8. 25:8. Therefore, thus says Yahuwah of armies, because you have not obeyed my words. Behold, I will send for all the tribes of the north, declares Yahuwah, and for Nebuchadnezzar. Notice how it jumps from Yahuwah of armies to Yahuwah there, the Father. like just one sentence to the next. So there's only one person talking, right? So that's interesting to me. It's kind of like the Exodus 3 chapter. You got the message, Malak Yahuwah, and then Yahuwah, like in the next verse or two, and it's the same person talking to Moses. So very interesting. So I'm wondering in this verse if it's just Yahuwah or I'm not even going to try to figure that out anyway. That chapter numbers are going to be all off. I'm not even going to try to figure that out. But anyway, I just find it interesting. You have Yahuwah of armies in verse 8, and then it goes to Yahuwah in verse 9. Go ahead, Brother Yahusha.
I'm sorry, not to go off on a rabbit trail, but I did want to point this out for another time. This seems to be prophesying of, this is the fine Yahusha in the Tanakh. This seems to literally point to the word coming. Where is it? I just saw it. In verse 36 and onward, it says, and do not call it word of Yahuwah any longer, because his word to mankind will be the word. I don't know what verse that would be in.
Yeah.
In the Masoretic.
I would have to look it up. Oh, hold on. Thank you, Alexandrian Bible. Thank you. All right. Chapter 32, 36 in the Masoretic. See, one thing I do like about the Alexandrian Bible is it does that in parentheses. So, yeah, it's I think that's the right one there. Voice of crying as shepherds. Oh no, never mind. That's different. Okay. So where would it be in that chapter?
I'll find it.
It does give you the parallel chapter numbering. So once we find it, I can give them the right one for the Masoretic. A lot of this is about this destruction of Babylon. It seems a lot of this chapter.
That verse in particular seems to say that Yahuwah's word to mankind will be the word. Meaning, the only way that makes sense is if it's talking about Yahusha. It's kind of redundant to say my word will to you will be my word.
Yeah, let me see here. I'm going to try. Sometimes a way to find this is just for me to search it on my MySword. It'll be 10 times easier. So let me see here. Will be my word. I'll find this real quick. So I want to. And yeah, see, the Lexham might have it worded differently. That might be the problem why I can't find it. I'm gonna have to look at that later. But what chapter numbering is it in your Lexham? Or whatever version you're reading from, just so I can check back at it later.
Chapter 23, verse 36.
23:36. That's why I wasn't finding it. Okay. Let me see here. See if it's worded that way here. Yeah. Okay, so it says, do ye name no more the burden of Yahuwah, for his own word shall be a man's burden. Yeah, see, that's the problem, is some of these translations translate as burden. I don't know why they do that. I don't know why they would do that. What word they're thinking it should be burden. That's very strange. But anyway, that was Yirmiyahu 23 verse 36 in the Lexham. And I like how the Lexham puts it. The other ones do not make logical sense with that wording. It's very weird. Burden. I'm gonna have to look into that, why they're translating that as burden. Problem is, when I go to the ABP, it's numbered like the Masoretic, so it's even harder to find it there. Hold on.
Lexham is going to be pulling from a different manuscript too. The Henry.
Yeah, that's right. I forgot. Lexham uses I forget if they use the Alexandrius. They use one of those families that Breton doesn't use. That's another confusing thing too. Is you have 3 or 4 different Septuagint families today. So depending on the translator, you're gonna have an issue there. But anyway, that was a good find, bro. That was a really good find. And I would agree with you. You can't say his word is utterance, because then it's extremely redundant to your point, and the wording in English doesn't even make sense. So anyway, I think now we're at 25 verse 32, or maybe we just read that one. So 25:32, going back to the Masoretic, just so I don't get confused with the chapter numberings. All right. Thus says Yahuwah of armies, see, evil is going forth from nation to nation, and a great whirlwind is raised up from the farthest parts of the earth. So we have Yahuwah of armies again being the one that's talking. All right. So now let's go to Yirmiyahu 26:18. 26:18. Okay. Just keep an eye on time, Mom, because I don't.
It's just about 10 o'clock coming up.
So how long have we been on it? Half an hour about? Just in case, just in case I got to do like a 2 recordings for this study, I'll do it.
Yeah, I'd say about 40-45 minutes.
All right. Okay. So I might have to do a part 2 even of this part 5, because I might do part 5A and then part 5B or something like that. Okay. Yirmiyahu 26 verse 18 says, all right, so it says, Mariah Moshe prophesied. Moresheth. Okay, let me get a regular English Bible here, because they're going a little crazy with the Hebrew, the ISR there. Micah of Moresheth prophesied in the days of Hezekiah, king of Yehuda, and said to all the people of Yehuda, thus says Yahuwah of armies, Zion shall be plowed as a field, Jerusalem shall become a heap of ruins, and the mountain of the house a wooded height. Okay, that's a weird phrase there, wooded height. I guess like there's just going to be a stump left is I guess the point there. Yeah, so we have Yahuwah of armies again being mentioned there. And it seems like it's talking about the destruction of Jerusalem, like in the days of Nebuchadnezzar. It might be a prophecy that already happened, because we see that, that happened when Babylon came in. So, all right, now we're at Yirmiyahu 27, verse 4, and then we got 18 and 19. So 27, verse 4. Okay. All right. Give them this charge for their masters, thus says Yahuwah of armies, the Eluah of Yasharal, this is what you shall say to your master. So again, we have Yahuwah of armies being mentioned here. Okay. All right. Okay, so, and the easiest way, guys, if you're dealing with like just a minor English Bible, like what I'm reading from, the way you know it's Yahuwah of armies is if you have an English like Lord with all caps, that's supposed to be Yahuwah there. You can find that with a Strong's Concordance. You can see that. Your Bible prefaces tell you this. All caps Lord is Yahuwah. Hosts is a very bad mistranslation of the Hebrew Sabaoth, which means heaven's armies or of armies. So once you understand that, you'll see why I know automatically it's talking about Yahuwah of armies. So, all right, verse 18 and 19 here in the same chapter. If they are prophets, and if the word of Yahuwah is with them, so now it's talking about the word of Yahuwah, then let them intercede. Interesting. Let them intercede with Yahuwah of armies, that the vessels that are left in the house of Yahuwah, in the house of the king of Yehuda, and in Jerusalem may not go to Babylon. Interesting. So it's almost equating the word of Yahuwah with Yahuwah of armies. in Jeremiah 27:18. It's interesting. It's pretty interesting. And then we also have verse 19. So let me go to verse 19. For thus says Yahuwah of armies concerning the pillars, the sea, the stands, and the rest of the vessels that are left in the city. Yeah, it's definitely talking about the destruction of Jerusalem that happened around, what was it, 625 BC? 625 BC? Or
586.
was when it was destroyed?
It was about 600 BC.
Okay, yeah, I was about to say, I know that's when they went to Babylon, but
Yeah,
I'm thinking the siege of
I
the
think it
city
was
had
about
to be
600,
before
I
that.
think.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Because they had 3 waves of
Jeremiah 27:21. So we're still in chapter 27. Let's go to verse 21. And it says, thus says Yahuwah of armies, the Eluah of Yashral, concerning the vessels that are left in the house of Yahuwah, in the house of the king of Yehuda, and in Jerusalem. So again, we have Yahuwah of armies, Yahuwah Sabaoth. Okay. And I'm kind of breezing through this, guys, because I'm trying to get as much done as we can in this first recording here. Okay. Yirmiyahu 28, verse 2 and verse 14. Okay. So 28, verse 2 and 14. So verse 2, thus says Yahuwah of armies, the Eluah of Yashrael, I have broken the yoke of the king of Babylon. So it seems like it jumps forward, and now it's talking about Yahuwah now judging Nebuchadnezzar possibly here. I wonder who they're talking about as a false prophet here. Zedekiah, maybe? Because
it says Hananiah in my caption here. The false prophet Hananiah.
Oh, so Hananiah was a false prophet. I never knew that. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That's something I never knew. Okay. So that's interesting. So anyway, we have Yahuwah of armies in verse 2 being mentioned as the Eluah of Yashrael. Again, Yahuwah of armies has to be Yahuwah. If he's not, then you have idolatry problem here. Just playing devil's advocate here. Okay. If like people say that you have, supposedly 2 different Yahuwahs, and this is a quote unquote lesser Yahuwah or whatever, and that's not the Father, and he's being called the Eluah of Yashrael, then you have a huge issue, because then you have idolatry problem, according to Deuteronomy 6, verse 4. So Yahusha has to be Yahuwah. That's the only way you get around that. The Yahuwah of armies has to be the Father himself. Cannot be a separate being. Anyway. Yeah, so anyway. So Yahuwah of armies, again, is mentioned there. So let's go back and, okay, let's try to get to document again. Yeah, we're going to see here. Yirmiyahu 29, verse 4, 8, 17, 21, and 25. Okay, so we have Yirmiyahu, 29, verse 4. Okay. Thus says Yahuwah of armies, the Eluah of Yashrael, to all their exiles whom I have sent into exile from Jerusalem to Babylon. So again, we see the Yahuwah of armies here being called the Eluah of Yashrael. Okay, again. So I think what I'm going to do here is I'm going to open the document on my phone here just so that we're breezing through this quicker, because I think what's also wasting a lot of time is me going back and forth to see what cross-reference I'm doing next. So this just might help me a tad. To where I'm not wasting time by going back and forth. Okay. All right. So we just did Jeremiah 29:4. Try to multitask here. Okay. All right. There we go. So Jeremiah 29:8, which says, "For thus says Yahuwah of armies," again, Yahuwah of armies, the Eluah of Yashrael, do not let your prophets and your diviners or among you deceive you? Do not listen to the dreams that they dream. Okay. So that's pretty much self-explanatory there. All right, let's go to verse 17, I believe. Thus says Yahuwah of armies, behold, I am sending on them sword, famine, pestilence. I will make them like vile figs that are so rotten they cannot be eaten. You know what this reminds me of? Of how Yahusha would just curse the fig tree.
Yeah, uh-huh. Yeah.
He's like, they will not even be able to be eaten. Yeah. Yeah, so this is very interesting. This definitely shows to me that Yahusha has to be Yahuwah of armies. Just the fact that I could never explain with the whole fig tree thing where that he was getting that from, but if Yahusha is Yahuwah Sabaoth here, this makes perfect sense. So he's like saying that I will make them, I will send sword and pestilence. I will make them like vile figs that are so rotten they can't be eaten. So that's kind of interesting there. But yeah. So yeah. All right, so now we're going to go to verse 21 and 25. By the way, I wanted to clarify what I meant by idolatry problem because there's so many different confusions and false beliefs out there. So basically, like, if you believe like us that Yahusha is Elohim, right? You can't believe he's a lesser Elohim. That's the point I'm trying to make. There was a counterfeit version of the oneness around the 1st century AD where they believed the word of Yahuwah was Yahuwah, but he was a second Yahuwah that was lesser. That type of belief system, you're going to have idolatry problem because literally in the most physical mindset, you're going to have someone that's also Elohim in heaven, but is a completely separate person, not physically one. And then you're going to have, essentially, you're going to have more than one Almighty in heaven.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I mean by you're going to have idolatry problem with that type of belief system. So, you know, in my opinion, it's better off if you're already going towards the oneness, you might as well fully accept it because that counterfeit of the oneness is going to cause you to go into polytheism. And is not much different from the Trinity, really. Anyway, in my opinion, but so you know that's why I brought that up. Okay, so let's see here. So it says, thus, verse 21, thus says Yahuwah of armies, the Alu of Yashrael concerning Ahab, the son of Kolialiah, and Zedekiah, the son of Maaseiah, who are prophesying a lie to you in my name. Behold, I will deliver them into the hand of Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon. He shall strike them down before your eyes. Okay, so again, Yahuwah of armies, again being mentioned as the Alua of Yashrael. So the person known as Yahuwah of armies is the mighty one of Israel. Okay. All right, so verse 25. Thus says Yahuwah of armies, the Alua of Yashrael, you have sent letters in your name to all the people who are in Jerusalem, and to Zephaniah the son of Maaseiah the priest, and to all the priests, saying, so again, Yahuwah of armies is addressing Israel, okay? And he's calling himself, Yahuwah of armies is calling himself their mighty one, okay? All right, moving down here to Jeremiah 30, verse 8. All right, so And it shall come to pass in that day, declares Yahuwah of armies, that I will break his yoke from off your neck, and I will burst your bonds, and foreigners shall no more make a servant of them. Okay, so we see Yahuwah of armies mentioned again, that I will break the yoke off your neck. All right, so nothing really to expound on there. We're going to move on to 31, verse 23 and 35. Thus says Yahuwah Sabaoth, the Alua of Yashrael. Again, he's being called the Mighty One of Israel. Once more they shall use these words in the land of Yehuda and in its cities, when I restore their former times. Yahuwah Baruch you, O habitation of righteousness, O set apart hill. So again, we see the oneness here. Yahuwah is talking about Yahuwah Baruching the habitation of righteousness, Jerusalem. And then right before that, it's talking about Yahuwah of armies, the mighty one of Israel. Okay. All right. So now we got verse 35 of the same chapter. Thus says Yahuwah, who gives them the sun for light by day, and fixed the order of the moon and the stars for light by night, who stirs up the sea so that its waves roar. Yahuwah of armies is his name. So it's right here. Right here, it's saying that Yahuwah of armies is Yahuwah's name. So it's the same person. Okay, so let's move on here. So let's see here. Now we're going to go to chapter 32, 14 to 15. Okay, Mom, can you read out verse 14 to 15?
Yeah, sure. Okay. Okay, 1 second. These numbers are hard. Okay, this is what Yahuwah Almighty, the Elohim of Yashrael says. Take these documents, both the sealed and unsealed copies of the deed of purchase, and put them in a clay jar, so they will last a long time. For this is what Yahuwah Almighty, the Elohim of Yashrael says, houses, fields, and vineyards will again be bought in this land. Be bought in this land.
All right. Okay, thank you for that. Okay, so righty then. Okay, anything you wanted to mention or?
I don't think so.
Okay. All right. So let me go to verse 18 here. In the same chapter here. You show steadfast love to thousands, but you repay the guilt of the fathers to their children after them. O great and mighty Alua, whose name, mind you, it's saying here, O great and mighty Alua. So again, Jeremiah is calling this person their mighty one. Okay. Whose name is Yahuwah of armies. Again, so yeah, definitely making it obvious that this is the Father here. Okay, that Yahusha has to be Yahuwah there. Okay, if he is Yahuwah of armies, so very, very important there. Okay, now we're going to go to Jeremiah 33, 11, 12. So we're going to try. Let's see here. So Jeremiah 33, 11, and 12. The voice of myrrh, the voice of gladness, the voice of the bridegroom, and the voice of the bride. The voices of those who sing as they bring thanksgiving to the house of Yahuwah. Give thanks to Yahuwah of armies, for Yahuwah's tube, for his steadfast love endures forever. For I will restore. I don't like to use that word. What would be another good word for that? Let me see if they have anything other than that in verse 11. Let me try a different translation. I don't like the word fortune. Okay, so yeah. Okay, I like this better. For I will turn back the captivity of the land as at first declares Yahuwah. Yeah, I like that better than restoring fortunes. That's Okay, so then we go to verse 12 here. It says, "Thus says Yahuwah of armies, in this place which is dried up, without man, without beast, in all its cities, there shall once again be a home of shepherds causing their flocks to lie down." Okay, chapter 35, verse 13. 35, verse 13. "Thus says Yahuwah of armies, the Elu of Yasharal, go and you shall say to the men of Yehuda and to the inhabitants of Jerusalem, you have not received instruction to obey my words, declares Yahuwah." So again, Yahuwah is calling himself Yahuwah of armies. Very clear that it says that there. Okay. Yahuwah of armies, the Elua, the mighty one of Yasharal. Okay. Now we're going to go to verse 18 to 19. "And Yirmiyahu said to the house of," I don't even know why they do that. Hold on. I got to get another translation here because they block out one of the letters there. "And Jeremiah said to the house of the Rechabites, thus says Yahuwah of armies, the Elua of Yasharal, because you have obeyed the command of Yonadab your father, and guarded all the commands and done according to all that he had commanded you." So again, we have Yahuwah of armies there. And that is 35, verse 19, I believe. Oh, no, my bad. It's verse 18. Okay, verse 19 is here. "Therefore, thus says Yahuwah of armies, the Elu of Yasharal, of Yonadab, son of Rechab, there shall never cease to be a man to stand before me." Okay, now we're going to go to Jeremiah 39, verse 16. Let me just see here. "Go, and you shall speak to Ebed-Melech the Cushite, saying, thus says Yahuwah of armies, the Elu of Yasharal, see, I am bringing my words upon this city for evil and not for good, and they shall be before you in that day." So again, we see Yahuwah of armies is being called the mighty one of Yasharal. Okay. Now we're going to go to Jeremiah 42, verse 15 and 18. Okay. "Then hear the word of Yahuwah, O remnant of Yehuda. Thus says Yahuwah of armies, the Elua of Yasharal. If you indeed set your faces to enter Egypt and shall go to sojourn there. For thus says Yahuwah of armies, the Elua of Yasharal, as my displeasure, my wrath has been poured out on the inhabitants of Jerusalem, so shall my wrath be poured out on you when you enter Egypt. And you shall be an oath and an astonishment and a curse and a reproach, and you shall see this place no more." Now, what's interesting too is, like, I always thought about, how do you get Yahudim in Egypt in the Hellenization time period? Now it makes sense. They were already there. You had Yahudim that didn't go to Babylon, that didn't want to get captured by Nebuchadnezzar, so they rebelled against Yahuwah and then went to Egypt. Hence, fast forward a little bit, 600 BC, Alexander the Great, where does he go? To Egypt. He founded the city Alexandria in Egypt in the Hellenization time period. There was already Judeans down there. So a lot of us don't pay attention to that. They would have already been down there before Alexander even got there. So, yeah. And that could be part of why Yahuwah had them being submitted to Greece. It's like part of their punishment. I'm just speculating, but
Yeah.
just saying. Usually it's because of sin when he puts them under a heathen nation. Usually. So, anyway, let's see here. We got Jeremiah 43, verse 10. Then you shall say to them, thus says Yahuwah of armies, the Elu of Yasharel, see, I am sending, and I shall bring Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, my servant,
Yeah.
and I shall set his throne above these stones that I have hidden. He shall spread his canopy over them. Interesting, canopy. Kind of like how Yahuwah spreads the heaven as a canopy. Interesting. Interesting. So we see here Yahuwah is actually calling Nebuchadnezzar his servant, which is kind of interesting.
Mhm.
Okay, so let's see here. 44, verse 2 here. Thus says Yahuwah of armies, the Elu of Yasharel, you yourselves have seen all the evil that I have brought on Jerusalem and on all the cities of Yehuda, and see this day they are a ruin, and no one who dwells in them. Wow.
Mhm.
Again, Yahuwah of armies is the one speaking here. All right, let's go to verse 11 now. Therefore, thus says Yahuwah of armies, the Elu of Yasharel, see, I am setting my face against you for the evil and for cutting off all Yehuda. So it seems like now Yahuwah is rescuing the southern house here. He's actually rescuing Yehuda. Kind of similar to the Gog-Magog war there. So he originally sends judgment on his people, and then he rescues them. Okay.
Sorry, what chapter?
What happened?
What chapter was that? That was 44, was it?
Yeah. Verse 11. Yeah. It says, therefore, thus says Yahuwah of armies, the Elu of Yasharal, see, I'm setting my face against you for evil and for the cutting off all Yehuda. So I thought it was saying that whoever was cutting off Yehuda, he was setting his face against them, but maybe I'm misinterpreting that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could be wrong. Yeah. I might have been misinterpreting that verse 11 there. Yeah. All right. But anyway, there are times, though, he'll set his face against those that he judges his people with. Like once they take, the old saying, he gives them an inch, they take a yard. Once that happens, then Yahuwah sets his face against the heathens.
I wonder if this is in reference towards, because it says, "Behold, I'm setting my face to destroy or to cut off all the remnant in Mitzrayim, and they shall fall by the sword and by famine and die, both small and great." I wonder if this is the same group of Yashrael that had asked Jeremiah to seek Yahuwah on whether or not they should go into Babylon or whether or not they should flee to Egypt, and Yahuwah said stay, and they fled instead.
Yeah, I would think so. I would think it's the same generation of them.
Cross-reference actually gives that verse. Interesting.
Yeah. I would safely say that's the same generation, because you have Ezekiel 29 seems to parallel that same account. So yeah, I would say that's the same generation. Let's see here. So I think we're at 46 verse 18. So 46 verse 18, and we got here, as I live declares Yahuwah of whose name, yeah, this is what I hate. It should say Yahuwah, not the sovereign. Okay, as I live declares Yahuwah, whose name is Yahuwah of armies. I'm sorry, I'm not going to acknowledge Adonai there. Sorry. For as Tabor is among the nations and Carmel by the sea, he shall come. So I'm pretty sure someone's going to be on the trolling on the comments. Oh, he's supposed to say Adonai there. I'm sorry. Don't acknowledge that rabbinical tradition. Sorry. All right. Anyway, Yahuwah of armies, the Elu of Yasharel, has said, see, I am bringing punishment on Ammon of No. Really? It's a place called No. And on Pharaoh and on Mitzrayim and on their mighty ones, Well, how does that sound familiar? Who said that in Exodus 12? Okay. And their kings and on Pharaoh and on those trusted in him. And what's interesting is we know for a fact the Father said it in Exodus 12. Now you have Yahuwah of armies saying the same exact thing. So, that's a little pointing to the oneness there if you look carefully. Yeah. Okay, so let me see here. Where are we at now? I think we just did verse 25. So now we're at Jeremiah 48, verse 1 and 15. Concerning Moab, this is what Yahuwah of armies, the Lu of Yashrael, says. Oh, my bad. The Lu of Yashrael said, woe to Nebo, for it is ravaged. Kiriathaim is put to shame. Captured. The high stronghold is put to shame and broken down. I think Nebo is actually a god of the Egyptians, if I remember correctly. Nebo is like one of their false gods. Let's see here. Moab is ravaged, verse 15 here, and her cities have been entered, and her chosen young men have gone down to the slaughter, and declares Yahuwah, whose name is Yahuwah of armies. Again, guys, sorry if I'm offending people. I'm not going to acknowledge Adonai there. Sorry. Let's see here. Jeremiah 49, verse 7. Okay, so it says here, concerning Edom, thus says Yahuwah of armies, there is no more wisdom in Teman. His counsel been lost to those with understanding. Has their wisdom vanished? What's interesting is that he's talking about concerning Edom. So that's kind of interesting there. You have Yahuwah of armies, the one that's talking there. So let's go to verse 26 and 35. Therefore, her young men fall in her streets, and the men of battle are cut off in that day, declares Yahuwah of armies. And I kind of wonder if this is like pointing to the destruction of Babylon and all of that, because, once you get to about Jeremiah 50, it starts talking about the daughter of Babylon and all that. So anyway, let's go to verse 35. Thus says Yahuwah of armies, see, I am breaking the bow of Elam, the chief of their might. This is what I hate with the ISR. Once you you get bold lettering, like some of the letters get blocked out. I hate that. I don't know why it does that. Let me just see here. Yeah, Elam, the mainstay of their might. Okay, so again, you have Yahuwah of armies speaking this. All right, so now we're up to Jeremiah 50, verse 18. Okay, so 50, verse 18. Therefore, thus says Yahuwah of armies, the Eluah of Yashrael, behold, I am bringing punishment on the king of Babylon and his land, as I punished the king of Assyria. Now, this, I would say, I'm going to write down a little note here. This is definitely a parallel prophetic account with Isaiah. So I would say Jeremiah 50, 18, you can cross with Isaiah 13. And I would say 14 as well in Isaiah, actually, the fall of Babylon. Because it even talks about his judgment on Assyria too in Isaiah 14. You can look that up for yourself. So that's something I just wanted to write down for myself for a future prophecy study there. Jeremiah 51:5, we're going to go to next. So, for Yashrael and Yehuda have not been forsaken by their Eluah, Yahuwah of armies, but the land of the Chaldeans is full of guilt against the set apart one of Yashrael. So that's 51 verse 5. Go ahead, brother Yahusha.
Can you scroll down on the list? Because I can't see farther than 49:7.
Okay. Let's see here. We did 50 verse 18, and 50 verses 33 to 34. Let me just make sure I did that one.
No, I mean, just can you scroll
Oh,
up or down or whichever way it needs to go?
okay.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Let me see here. Okay, so we're at 51 5. We're right here. So we're right there. Okay. So that's where we're actually only got a couple left, guys, and we're gonna be we'll probably end the night on that. I don't want to go into Pillar of Cloud of Fire yet. So that's gonna be a whole nother title there. And then we got Hidden Quiver, and then we got Master of Steam, King of the Steam will be the last title to go through. So I think we'll just finish this list right here. So yeah. So I think we just did actually 51 verse 5, right? We just did that one, Mom, right?
I think so.
Yeah, so now we're going to go to verse 14 of 51. Verse 14 of 51. So let me get to 51 here. Yahuwah of armies has sworn by myself. Right there is oneness right there. Has sworn by myself, talking about himself in the third person, okay? Which Yahusha did a lot. Surely I will fill you with men as many as locusts, and they shall raise the shout of victory over you. And by the way, the whole equality thing of the Son and the Father, another way to prove this is, I was just thinking about it in Genesis, Bereshit. You have Yahuwah saying, or who quotes from Genesis? Is it Paul? He says he could not swear by anyone greater, so he swore by himself.
I don't remember.
I could have swore Shaul says
It
that.
might have been him. Sounds like
Because
him.
he's basically saying he had to swear by himself because there's no one higher than him, is basically what he's saying. So, yeah. Anyway, so if Yahusha's Elohim, then he has to be Yahuwah by default because there's no one greater. And, and even in the Targums, it will say, I'm making this covenant between you and my word. So his word can't be greater than him. It has to be equal with him. Anyway. Surely I will fill you with men as many as locusts, and they shall raise. Okay, you two, get out of here. Shall raise you with men as many as locusts, and they shall raise the shout of victory over you. Okay, so again, the biggest point I would make of this verse here, Yahuwah of armies has sworn by himself. That definitely reminds me of what Paul talks about. Sworn by himself. All right. And let's move on here. Let's get back to the next one here we're at, which is verse 19. Okay, we're at verse 19. Not like these is he who is a portion of Yaqub, for he is the one who formed all things. Basically saying Yahusha is not like a mortal. Okay? And Yashrael is the tribe of his inheritance. You know how Judges 2, Judges 2, verse 7 says, I took you out of Egypt, my covenant I made with you. Yahuwah of armies is his name. So Yahuwah of armies basically has possession of Jacob. Jacob is his inheritance. And there's other cross references for this. Jeremiah 10, 12, 16. Okay. So anyway, so now we're moving on to verse 33 of the same chapter here. Okay. For thus says Yahuwah of armies, the Yahuwah of Yashral, the daughter of Babylon is like a threshing floor at the time when it is trodden. Yet a little while, and at the time of her harvest will come. And by the way, this is hinting to Matthew 13, time of the harvest. Okay. So again, this is a little hint when we know this is going to be fulfilled. Okay. And Babylon and her daughter is going to be destroyed, would be the day of his wrath, the day of his return. Okay. How do I know this? Because it says time of her harvest. the end of the world is the harvest and all that. So again, that's why I say line upon line, precept upon precept. You have to take what prophecy is literally given you and be careful of terminology like that. There's a reason Yahuwah is talking about her harvest. So again, that's a little hint there when this is taking place. Verse 57 to 58. By the way, the reference I was giving you guys was Matthew 13, 36 to 40. So you can check that out for yourselves about the harvest and all that. So Jeremiah 51 verses 57 and 58. I will make drunk her officials and her wise men, her governors, her commanders, her warriors. They shall sleep a perpetual sleep and not wake, declares the king, whose name is Yahuwah of armies. I mean, other than this prophetic language being used by Paul in Thessalonians, in 1 Thessalonians, talking about we're not drunk, we're not asleep spiritually, we're awake, we're in the day and all that. We see that Yahuwah of armies is the one speaking this. So he's going to make her wise men or her counselors or her kings drunk, but not with wine. And we see that, concept all over through prophecy. He's not talking about literal wine. He's talking about, spiritual drunkenness. Yeah. So, all right. So we're moving on. And just to show people where we are on the document, just in case people are following along, looking at the document, we're right now at Micah 4:4 right here. So we only got a couple more, guys, and we're going to be done. So at least done for this portion. Micah 4:4. But they shall sit every man under his vine, under his fig tree. Interesting. No one shall make them afraid, for the mouth of Yahuwah of armies has spoken. Oh, man. Even the Masoretic text, man. The mouth of Yahuwah of armies. So right here, you have to stop and be like, okay, so his word can't just be his utterance. Because it's literally saying the mouth of Yahuwah of armies. So the utterance of Yahuwah of armies, which we've seen in other places, Yahuwah of armies is equated to the word of Yahuwah, this person called the word of Yahuwah. So literally it's saying, in a way, it's saying, for the mouth of the word of Yahuwah has spoken is really what it's saying. So Micah 4:4 is great to show people that the word of Yahuwah is not just an utterance. Okay, so again, all right. So now we're going to move on. Let me see. Let me go to the next bullet point here. Nahum. Hopefully, I'm saying that. Is it Nahum or Nahum?
I always say Nahum, but I don't know. I could know.
Yeah. I think in the Hebrew it probably would be the ah and the at the end, only because they pronounce it a like ah. So Nahum, chapter 2, verse 13. Behold, I am against you, declares Yahuwah of armies. I will burn your chariots in smoke, and the sword shall devour your young lions. I will cut off your prey from the earth, and the voice of your messengers shall no longer be heard. Now, I forget if this is talking about Nineveh, because I do remember Nineveh becomes wicked again at some point in time. Yeah, it's Nineveh. Yep. I remember this chapter. Yep. So this is Yahuwah's judgment on Nineveh. Because basically what happened was they listened to Jonah, they repented, and then they became wicked again. So it's like it didn't really last that long. They kind of just, which we can all relate to that at times where backslided, or even I would say Israel even as a whole has done that, not just pagan nations that have partially repented. So yeah. Behold, I am against you, declares Yahuwah of armies. I will lift up your skirts over your face. So this is Nahum chapter 3, verse 5. I will lift up your skirts over your face. I will make nations look at your nakedness and the kingdoms at your shame. So he's basically using marriage language to Israel right there. Okay, he's like, I'm going to expose all your nakedness and all that. Okay, so now we're at Zephaniah 2, 9 to 10. You all right, Mom?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Therefore, as I live, declares Yahuwah of armies, the Eluah of Yashral, Moab shall become like Sodom, the Ammonites like Gomorrah, and the land possessed by nettles and salt pits. So again, it's talking about Moab is going to become like Sodom, Ammonites are going to become like Gomorrah. The remnant of my people shall plunder them, and the survivors of my nation shall possess them. Interesting, the survivors or the remnant shall possess them. So interesting. It's always a remnant. It's always a remnant. It's key to understand that, because when Paul says all Yashrael shall be saved, he can't contradict Zephaniah. He can't contradict Isaiah. He can't contradict all the prophets that show that it's only a remnant. It's not every physical descendant. Okay. This shall be their lot in return for their pride, because they taunted and boasted against the people of Yahuwah of armies. Okay, so they shall be their lot in return. Okay, so again, it says, because they've boasted against Yahuwah of armies, his people. So Israel are his possession, his people. All right, now we're going to go to Haggai. We got a lot from Haggai here. Chapter 1, verse 2. So Haggai 1, verse 2. Thus says Yahuwah of armies, these people say, time has not yet come to rebuild the house of Yahuwah. And so again, we see Yahuwah of armies being spoken of here, that he's the one speaking. Okay, let's go to verse 5. Now, therefore, thus says Yahuwah of armies, consider your ways. Go ahead, brother Yahusha.
Did you get Habakkuk 2:13, or was I just not paying attention?
Oh no, I was. I probably just went through it too quickly. Hold on. Yeah, I think I went through it a little too quickly. Only because we're at the end, almost at the end of this list here. Behold, it is not from Yahuwah of armies that people labor merely for fire, and nations weary themselves for nothing. Interesting. Oh, you know what it is? I had Habakkuk written twice by mistake, or typed twice. I see it now. Yeah,
Okay.
by mistake. Yeah, so I did Zephaniah 2, 9 to 10 as well before. We're at Haggai 1, verse 5. So Haggai 1, verse 5. It's definitely helping to have a phone in my hand with the list. It's definitely helping. Now, therefore, thus says Yahuwah of armies, consider your ways. Okay, that wasn't much there. Thus says Yahuwah of armies, consider your ways. So again, he keeps telling Yashrael, look in the mirror, consider your ways. You looked for much, and behold, verse 9 here, you looked for much, and behold, it came a little. When you brought it home, I blew it away. Why, declares Yahuwah of armies? Because of my house, that he's in ruins, while each of you busies himself with his own house. So basically, Yahuwah is rebuking them for caring more about their stuff, their homes, than, his ministry, or doing, or, not taking care of the temple and stuff like that. It seems like that's what he's talking about. And Yahuwah stirred up the spirit of Zerubbabel, the son of Shealtiel, governor of Yehuda, and the spirit of Yahusha, son of Yehozadak, the high priest, and the spirit of all the remnant of the people, and they came and worked on the house of Yahuwah of armies, their Eluah. So again, it says that this is the house of Yahuwah of armies. Again, so if Yahuwah of armies is not Yahuwah, you have another problem, because they're saying the temple is his house. Okay. So right there, and that's Haggai, what is that? 1:14. So now we're going to go to chapter 2, verses 6 to 9. Just stick it in there, guys. Hold on, guys. We're almost done here. We're almost done. For thus says Yahuwah of armies, yet once more in a little while, and I will shake the heavens. No, so this person, Yahuwah of armies, has all authority. Very interesting. He would have authority to shake the heavens and the earth and the sea and the dry land. So if this person is not Yahuwah, who would it be? It has authority to shake the creation, to manipulate the creation. Go ahead, Brother Yahusha.
Old hands.
Oh, okay. I will shake all the nations, that the treasures of all nations shall come in, and I will fill this house with esteem, says Yahuwah of armies. The silver is mine, the gold is mine, declares Yahuwah of armies. The latter esteem of this house shall be greater than the former, says Yahuwah of armies. And in this place I will give peace, declares Yahuwah of armies. Okay, so that's verses 6 to 9 there. Got verse 11 as well. Thus says Yahuwah of armies, ask the priests about the law. Yeah, this is around the time that he would have started choosing new Levites at this point. If I'm not mistaken, this would have been around the same time as Ezekiel and all that, where he's rebuking the original Levites. And he's like, listen, now I'm going to choose Zadok and his direct lineage under Aaron's seed. Because before, it wasn't directly from Zadok before. So basically, because of the sin of the Levites, Yahuwah had to actually make it more narrow from Aaron's seed and make it directly from Zadok. Okay, so Haggai 2:23, on that day declares Yahuwah of armies, I will take you, O Zerubbabel, my servant, the son of Shealtiel, declares Yahuwah, and make you like a signet ring, for I have chosen you, declares Yahuwah of armies. Yeah, so Zerubbabel is supposed to be symbolic of one of the two witnesses. If you read in other places, like Zechariah, the book of Zechariah, for instance, Zerubbabel and Yahusha, son of Yehozadak, are the two. Basically, he allegorically points to them as the two lampstands, or whatever, the two. What is it called, Mom? The two witnesses called in Zechariah 3. What are they called? The two olive trees. Two olive trees and all that. So he points to Zerubbabel in that chapter, and Yahusha, the son of Yehozadak, symbolically representing those two. So we know that from that chapter alone, Israel cannot be the two witnesses. I'm not going to go into a whole tangent about that, but if even in the book of Zechariah, Yahuwah is symbolically using two individuals, we can clearly come to the conclusion it has to be two individuals, not the whole house of Israel. Okay? So anyway, so let's see here. Chapter 1, verses 3 to 4 of Zechariah. Therefore say to them, thus declares Yahuwah of armies, return to me, says Yahuwah of armies, and I will return to you, says Yahuwah of armies. Wow. His name is mentioned like 3 different times in that verse. Do not be like your fathers, to whom the former prophets cried out. Thus says Yahuwah of armies, return from your evil ways and from your evil deeds. But they did not hear or pay attention to me, declares Yahuwah. But my words and my statutes, which I commanded my servants, the prophets, did they not overtake your fathers? So they repented and said, as Yahuwah of armies purposed to deal with us for our ways and deeds, so has he dealt with us. Seems like he's quoting from Daniel there. Zechariah 1:6 there. Go ahead, Brother Yahusha.
In the Septuagint, even though Yahuwah Almighty is it would be Yahuwah of forces. In the literal Greek, it would be Yahuwah of forces. What's interesting is though it always translates it Yahuwah Almighty. I don't know exactly why. Why not just translate it Yahuwah of forces? But what's interesting about Zechariah 1:3 in the Charles Thompson and the Complete Apostles Bible, it translates it Almighty once, but then the last two times it translates it Yahuwah of Hosts. Same word, but
Interesting.
I've never seen
Yeah, that's very interesting. That I never noticed that before. So that's something I want to look more into. Yeah, forces literally would be the same thing, probably a Greek equivalent as to Sabaoth, because that's really what Sabaoth is. It's, the angelic armies. So forces, armies, yeah, it's pretty much the same thing. So I don't know why they would translate as Almighty. It must be a tradition, like how they translate Shaddai or Al Shaddai as Almighty. It's not Almighty. It's probably either Jewish or Christian tradition to do that. Let's see here. Zechariah 1:12 we have next. It says, Then Malach Yahuwah said, O Yahuwah of armies, how long will you have no mercy on Jerusalem and on the cities of Yehuda, against which you have been angry with these 70 years? And this is a perfect example of the oneness right here. The Father and the Son can talk to one another and still be the same person. This is where people get confused. We make assumptions in our limited human understanding. Oh, that means Malach Yahuwah can't be Yahuwah. But we know for a fact the Malach Yahuwah is Yahuwah of armies. If Malach Yahuwah is Yahusha, right? And Yahusha is Yahuwah of armies, it's this one person. So it's not separating Yahusha from Yahuwah. What it is it's showing the plurality. It's showing the plurality of the two powers in heaven concept. Okay, you can have two powers as in roles, but still one Alua. So that's what would be my rebuttal there. So anyway, so obviously he talks about Yahuwah of armies here. How long will you not have mercy on Jerusalem? So against which you have been angry these 70 years. Interesting. Now, what I wonder is if Malach Yahuwah is in the Septuagint. I'm just curious. Okay, it is. All right, I was just curious. Yeah. Let me just check and see in the Greek if it is Almighty, because now I'm going to be very, it's forces. So again, at least the ABP plus is being honest here. So the ABP plus is showing in the Greek it should be forces as well. Not Almighty, because there is a separate Greek word that means Almighty, by the way. It's just being mistranslated here. So I'm making a little physical note here. So it's supposed to be forces in Zechariah 1:12. Let's see here. Now verse 14. Let's go to verse 14 in the same chapter here. And the Malach that spoke with me said to me, Cry out and say, Thus says Yahuwah. Interesting. So now let me see here. And the messenger who spoke with me said to me, Proclaim, saying, Thus says Yahuwah of armies. I've been zealous for Jerusalem and for Zion with great jealousy. Now, I could even make the argument here that this Malach here is talking to Zechariah firsthand here, and he's saying Yahuwah of armies has said this. Now, what's interesting here is nowhere in the verses it indicating that a regular messenger went to Yahuwah to get this message. So this is like firsthand Zechariah is being given what this Malach is saying to him. What Yahusha, I believe this is Malach Yahuwah here talking to Zechariah. And it seems like literally it's firsthand information what thus says. So just found that interesting. So let's go with verse 16 to 17. Therefore, thus says Yahuwah, I shall return to Jerusalem with compassion. My house shall be built in it, declares Yahuwah of armies, and a surveyor's line be stretched out over Jerusalem. Again, Yahuwah of armies. It says, my house, my temple. Okay. So if Yahuwah of armies is not Yahuwah, you have another problem there. You have someone else, not the Father, claiming that the temple is their house. Yeah, that would be a huge problem, in my opinion. That would be a huge issue. All right, so moving on, Zechariah 2:8-9 and verse 11. For thus says Yahuwah of armies, for the sake of esteem, he has sent me to the Gentiles, which I plunder you. That is interesting. He sent me to the Gentiles. That's interesting. Mind you, if this really means like heathen nations, this is interesting because you usually don't see this until the New Testament, where Yahuwah is sending someone to the heathen. That's kind of interesting. I mean, you'll see it once in a while with Jonah and stuff like that, but it's very rare that you see that literally in the Tanakh. It says, he sent me to the Gentiles, which plunder you. Or he who touches you touches the apple of my eye. So that's interesting. It's almost like Zechariah and Jonah, now thinking about it, they're given like missions like Paul. It's kind of interesting. I never noticed that before. So that's kind of interesting the way that's worded in verse 8 there. So Zechariah 2, verse 8. And you have verse 9, for I am waving my hand against them. They shall become spoil for their servants. You shall know that Yahuwah of armies has sent me. Now, you could also make the case that maybe it's not talking about, preaching to the Gentiles. It's more about, warning the Gentiles that Yahuwah's wrath is on them. You could definitely make that case. So I might take that back in that context. Go ahead, Brother Yahusha.
Well, you said what I was going to say.
Yeah, I can see how someone could, use the other argument. So I'll take that back. I can see that. And many Gentiles shall be joined to you. Well, here we go, though. We have 2 verses later. And many Gentiles shall be joined to Yahuwah in that day. They shall become my people. Okay, so, and again, I know Christians are going to say, see, we're his new people. No, that's not what it's saying. Okay, I shall dwell in your midst, and you shall know that Yahuwah of armies has sent me to you. What most people don't understand is, by the way, a lot of Ephraim became spiritually Gentiles. Okay, so every time it says, it doesn't mean every time it says a Gentile, it means an ethnic Gentile, just FYI. That's something I had to unlearn when really coming into this walk. You can't make that assumption just because it says Gentiles, that it's an ethnic or natural born Gentile. It could be Samaritans even being mentioned as that. It can be Ephraimites, Gadites, Naphtalites that have been scattered, that became like the Gentiles. Even some of the Yahudim became like the Gentiles. So just because it says, the Gentiles will be my people, no, it doesn't mean he has a new people. Go ahead, Brother Yahusha.
Masoretic says, I will dwell in the midst of you, and you shall know that Yahuwah of hosts has sent me unto you. I know this is a bit off topic, but it just was bothering me. And they shall dwell, Septuagint says, and they shall dwell in the midst of you, meaning these nations shall dwell in the midst of Yasharal.
That makes a lot more sense. Okay. Yeah, I would go with this Septuagint on that particular verse. It makes a little bit more sense, showing that nations are joining Israel rather than him having a new people. Which it's weird that the Masoretic would have it worded like that. It's very strange. I wonder why. The only other thing I can think of is that the ISR mistranslated a word that does not mean goyim. That's the only thing I can think of, but it's just worded really weird. It's worded very badly in the Masoretic in that verse. Makes way more sense. They shall dwell in the midst of you, the you meaning Israel. You shall know that Yahuwah of forces has sent me unto you, and I'm pretty sure it's forces here. Let me just double check. I doubt it's Almighty. Okay, that time is Almighty. That time. Okay, different word. Okay, so that time is Almighty.
Can you share your screen?
Yeah. Oh, my screen's not on. Hold on a second. Let me see here. So right here, you have the Greek word here. This is different from armies or forces. This is Almighty, which is P. Let me see here if I can bring this up here. Taskbar, move the taskbar here. So G3841 in the Thayers, which is Pankokrator, ruler of all, Almighty. So I would say even Almighty is a little generic for that word. I would say Master of all is probably a better translation of that Greek word for the title that precedes after Yahuwah's name there. So it probably should say Yahuwah, Master of all or ruler of all. It's very weird. It's very weird how traditionally they put Almighty there, but it might not even be Almighty. I mean, most of these English Bibles, you got to realize that these guys are doing their best intentioned to translate certain Greek and Hebrew words. They're not going to be perfect, especially when they don't know the languages that well. So we're at Zechariah 3:7 and verse 9 and 10, and this is going to be the last one, guys. So I promise you, we're right at the end here. So Zechariah 3, verses 7, 9, and 10. All right, so I'll go back to Mizraimic here. Thus says Yahuwah of armies, if you walk in my ways, if you guard my duties, then you shall also rule my house and also guard my courts, and I shall give you access among these standing here. Okay. And let's jump down to verses 9 and 10 here. See the stone which I have put before Yahusha. On one stone are 7 eyes. See, I am engraving its inscription, declares Yahuwah of armies, and I shall remove the guilt of that land in one day. Now, what's interesting here is notice who he chooses for the 7 eyes. He chooses Yahusha, son of Yehozadak, which is a type of Yahusha HaMashiach. Okay? And how do I know this? Let's go 3 chapters later, just real quick to show you guys how I know this, that he's supposed to be a type of the Messiah. Right here. So start at verse 11 here in chapter 6 of Zechariah. And you shall take the silver and gold and make a crown and set it on the head of Yahusha, the son of Yehozadak, the high priest. Okay. And shall speak to him, saying, thus says Yahuwah of armies. Interesting that it says Yahuwah of armies is the one saying this. Saying, see the man whose name is the branch. And from his place he shall branch out, and he shall build the temple of Yahuwah. You know how I know this is not only talking about Yahusha, son of Yehozadak? He never built the temple. That prophecy still hasn't been fulfilled yet. And it won't be fulfilled until the millennium. So we have this type of Yahusha being pointed to, being put a crown on him. And he's a high priest. Obviously, the intent is that he's a type of Messiah. His name was going to be the name of the coming Messiah. So that's why it says his name is the branch, the stem of Jesse, all those titles you guys should be familiar with. So it's saying Yahusha's name, Yahusha, son of Yehozadak, his name Yahusha is the name of the branch. So people always ask me, how do you know this was supposed to be the Messiah's name and it's not Jesus? Well, you have it right there. Zechariah 6:12. It's right there. Yahuwah told us ahead of time what the name of the Messiah was going to be. It's right there. So, and by the way, just an interesting little tidbit that Bible Hub has, and I'll try to find the article for you guys. There's a commentary where there's a Christian commentator that admits that according to the Targum of Zechariah, instead of this, it would actually read as his name is Messiah. Makes it even more clear that it was supposed to be the prophesied name of the Messiah. So yeah. I mean, when you look at this, it's pretty obvious that the name of the Messiah was never going to be Jesus. So anyway, so hopefully I think this is it. Yep. Hopefully this message was a baraka to all those involved. Hopefully it was encouraging. And if you guys are new to our series we've been doing with this, I really recommend checking out the channel again. How to find Yahusha in the Tanakh. Find that playlist on our channel. It's going to have all 5 parts now on it. So I would recommend start from part 1 and just gradually go through all parts, and you'll understand what we've been showing you guys here. And like I said last time, this is really for a specific audience. This is for a specific audience. I would say for most part, those that are struggling to accept the Brit Hadashah, whether if they're Jewish, whether if they're Muslim, whether if they're even some of our brothers and sisters that are starting to doubt Paul, starting to doubt this person, that person in the New Testament as inspired scripture. I think this will help people reconcile some things, because ultimately what I've seen is the oneness topic is the main topic that seems to create a dividing line with those that accept the Brit Hadashah and those that don't, from what I've seen. And I think it's a moving of the Father to really start. He is sifting. He's trying to really make this a divided line. And, this is really an important topic, because once you understand this, you can reconcile the whole Bible. Without this understanding, you're going to think the Old Testament is contradicting the New Testament, this and that. So this is a very important understanding to have, extremely important. This reconciles the whole issue with why, with the whole remarriage and all that. I mean, this oneness thing and how to find Yahusha in the Tanakh with all these different titles. By going through this study, we're even proving more that the oneness is true. Because I'm not even intentionally going to the oneness topic, but every title he's known by, it goes back to him being the Father. So hopefully you guys that have been struggling with this, hopefully this was a way for you to reconcile some things or confirmation on some things. So I just want to thank everyone for joining us, and to all of our brothers and sisters out there, have a great rest of your Sabbath evening and the rest of your Shabbat going into tomorrow.